In an essay entitled Connecting Up from her book Kitchen Table Wisdom, Dr. Rachel Naomi Remen writes, "Perhaps the wisdom lies not in the constant struggle to bring the sacred into daily life, but in the recognition that there may be no daily life, that life is committed and whole, and, despite appearances, we are always on sacred ground. In the midst of daily living, ritual can become a way of remembering this." A young patient newly recovered from surgery told me this story of preparing food to celebrate the coming holiday of Passover for her Orthodox Jewish sweetheart and 40 of their friends. My patient, who was Jewish by background, was raised by people who had lapsed in their observance of the religion, and she had never participated in the preparation of Passover dinner before. Her young man, however, had celebrated the holiday since infancy and had helped his mother make the same preparations year after year. He knew them by heart, and he taught her. She was surprised to discover that Jewish kitchens had at least 4 sets of dishes: pots, silverware, and cooking tools. One set is used daily for food containing milk, and those of us that cook kosher know that another set is used for foods that contain meat. These dishes are never commingled, and her friend had 2 dishwashers and 2 sinks in their kitchen. In addition to these 2 sets of dishes, there are 2 more sets, one for milk and one for meat, for use on Passover. All of this almost overwhelmed her. "Rachel," she said, "you have never seen so many dishes, so many pots, so many pans, so many knives, so many forks, and pancake turners. It all seemed so pointless to me. But it was so terribly important to Herbert, and I was terrified of making a mistake and ruining things for him. But a really strange thing happened. Sometime in the middle of setting things up, I was standing by myself in the kitchen with my arms filled with dishes, looking for some shelf room to be able to put them away. Every shelf was full, and I remember thinking, where am I going to put these dairy dishes? And suddenly, I was not alone. I had a very real sense of the presence of many women who had ever asked themselves this very ordinary question. Thousands and thousands of them, some young, some old, some in tents, in villages and cities, women holding dishes made of clay and wood and tin, women dressed in medieval clothing, in skins, in crudely woven fabrics and styles I had never seen. Among them were my own grandmothers who had lived and died in Warsaw before I was born. In that same instant, I also knew that if the human race continued, there would be women dressed in fabrics I could not even imagine, holding dishes made of materials not yet invented, who would be standing in their kitchens facing the same problem. Women who had not yet been born, they were there too. In the blink of an eye in Herbert's kitchen, I was in the company of women across more than 5,000 generations. "Well, Rachel, I almost dropped the dishes," she said. I was so surprised, it's hard to put into words, but it was not just an idea, it was like a happening, she said. I had this vast perspective. I knew myself to be a thread in a great tapestry, woven by my ancestors in the name of God since the beginning. You would think that this would make you feel small, but I didn't. I was a single thread, but I belonged. Something I had never experienced before. For a few seconds, I had a glimpse of something larger, not only of who I am, but of whose I am. It only lasted for a second, but I can remember it very clearly. I felt changed by it. Now, I was drawn to this story, this Passover Yizkor, for two reasons. The first is because of the dishes and memories they provide Jody and me at Passover. Memories I'm sure that we all share. You see, we use a set of Jody's parents' china and cutlery for our Passover meat dishes. I'm showing a picture of them now. They are Wedgwood's cuckoo collection. Cuckoo, of course, is probably appropriate for our family. Today, however, the design is only available as a tea set, so they're antiques. Every year as I unpack them, I mention to Jody, and it's really got to be the same thing I say to her every year, you know, we're both unlucky and lucky to have these dishes. We're lucky to have such a beautiful set of china to enrich our Passover meals with their presence. And we're unlucky to have had them given to us at such an early stage of our lives. Jody and her sister Jill tragically lost both their parents and an older sister in a 3-year period while they were in their 20s. I never had the honor to meet them. In fact, our ufruf was the week after the last of what was almost 3 years of saying Kaddish for Jody's family. We would have much preferred to have her parents, our kids' grandchildren, to celebrate the holiday with rather than their dishes. Then we pause for a moment and we continue to unpack for Passover. V'yigata levincha, and you shall tell your child on that day, is the verse from the book of Shmot that sets the ritual for the Seder. This is the Torah's response to questions that come from our children regarding Passover, its meaning and ritual. Passover is the time of storytelling. The name Haggadah itself means telling. More than the questioning and telling of our national redemption, at Passover we must also answer the questions of our children about parents, grandparents, spouses, and children. Family and friends tell the stories of our family histories, the stories of the people who helped to weave the tapestries of our lives. Jody's mother, Zivia, here's a picture of Zivia and Herb, for whom our oldest daughter, Zivia, is named. She loved pretty things. And by the way, the fact that Jody's father's name is Herb and the man in the story's name is Herbert is totally coincidental, but that's just how it works, I suppose. Zivia was an artist. Here's an example of one of the many paintings she created that we proudly display in our home. You can readily see why she chose the china set she did. Vivid color, flowers, she loved flowers, nature, beautiful. Zivia was the glue of her family. She was the one who kept in touch, made sure visits occurred and holidays were shared as family events. She knew all the connections and all the contacts. Jody has tried to keep up these relationships since Zivia's passing, but it's just not the same. And when we think about it, and when we think about her, we also think about the many ways, more than simply her passing, that our lives are diminished by her absence. When we sit at the Passover table, when we look at the china, we remember Zivia, and we tell the stories about her life and the impact she had on Jody, on Jill, and on our family, both in life and in death. Passover provides an additional perspective on the great tapestry of life. The second reason I was drawn to Naomi Reben's essay this year has to do with the conversation I had with Karen Jackson, one of our congregants. Last week, we were speaking about the recent loss of her mother, Esther. The day after Esther's funeral, she would have turned 96. When we spoke, Karen shared with me elements of her tremendous relationship with her mother, how she had presence, was generous, had heart, and loved children, all children. Esther was known for speaking to total strangers, especially those with children, to whom she would say, "Beautiful, they will be the joy of your life." Esther, like Jody's mother Zivia, also exemplified what family is about and was the glue that brought everyone together, especially at Passover. The holiday of Pesach and the Seders have always been very special to the Schwartz family. Their parents' home was the gathering place for family and extended family, where Karen told me 40 of us would participate in a very lively rendition of the Haggadah. Of course, our mother's cooking was over the top, delicious, and there was always enough to feed 100, each Seder. We never understood, she said, how she did it until the mantle was shifted to the next generation. She became my gentle guide when I began hosting Seders. Karen's parents were both so proud to see the next generation was going to carry on all the traditions that they learned from them. Karen's father, Zal Zichrono Livracha, passed away 5.5 years ago, just days after holding the first great-grandchild within hours of her birth. This photograph shows Esther holding her first great-grandchild just before the start of that Seder without their father. Karen shared with me that her mother was heartbroken over the loss of her partner. Even so, she found great joy in her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Family was everything to her. I suggested that Karen put a framed copy of that picture on their Passover table in the spot in which Esther would sit and ask those present in person and on Zoom, V'higarata levincha, to share their stories of Esther. Karen said that putting the picture on the table brought tears and smiles as they told the stories and lovingly recalled the decades of joyous family Seders. We talked about our mother, father, happy times, and how much we miss them. Dishes, pictures, Passover, V'higarata levincha, the stories of family we tell. This is why it is so fitting that at these moments, when we notice who is not at our tables, it's fitting that at this time of year we remember those who came before us and helped weave the tapestry of who we are and whose we are, to whom we belong. When we gather for Yizkor, we know, like Rachel Naomi Remen's patient, that we too are not alone in our memory, but that we stand together across generations, that we belong to each other, to God, and to tradition. The ritual of Yizkor is our way of remembering.